Conference. Welcome to conference this week, and I hope all of you out there in our extended family are working with us and doing the homework and watching the films. This semester we're studying Joseph Campbell's A Hero's Journey, and rather than read the book, we are watching the film Finding Joe and adding and bringing different things into it. Having said that, Debbie, will you bring me the quote for this week while we're talking? So last week I asked you guys to begin your hero's journey with, thank you, Deb, getting your empty journal that we're going to fill this semester. You were writing your story this semester, and I asked all of you to start your first page with a big red dot that says, I am here. Your own personal map. Locating yourself, sort of our compass too, right? Locating yourself was our theme. And then I asked you to, last week we talked about the patterning of the hero's journey, the basic circular pattern that Joseph Campbell has diagrammed and outlined for us, that we kind of all fall in, and not just like once. We fall into this pattern many, 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 many times, and if you can identify it, it's incredibly helpful. So the beginning of the hero's journey is what? Separation. Something happens, boom. I just had one of my longtime students I love, she just left, told me that her son just lost his job, and he's having a hard time with that. But it wasn't the best job for him in the first place, but anyway, he had a job, right? But he lost his job, and so she's seen the movie, and she's a school teacher, also showed it to her class. And we both said, separation, right? And so then what happens after that? Something happens, you don't plan on it, you don't want to lose your job, but there it is, you lose your job, and what's the next part of the journey? Initiation. So the initiation part of the hero's journey is what do you do then? You start looking for another job, you start to look more at what your passions are, you're faced with problems within that, and you have to work hard, and you know, it's all of that experience and the challenges that are part of that. And then what happens at the end?
Return.
You return, and return is important because return has two pieces to it. One part of return is he'll get another job, and it might be a better job, and it might be one that he would have really wanted, but he couldn't because he had this other job. But what he'll bring back into it is all this wisdom from the journey of losing it and trying to find it again, and the hassle, and the working harder than you thought you'd ever work for something, and so you return back with wisdom to bring back into your life, bring into the next loop or the next chapter of your life. But as well, the return is about coming back and bringing that experience to others. And so oftentimes when we look at some of our hero stories that we love, that we're familiar with, there's that bringing back to the community this wisdom, or giving back. So you don't mind if I use you as an example. So I know that Debbie, years ago, had cancer. She survived cancer and changed her life because of that. And now she brings that to others and works with Dear Jack Foundation and other foundations, where she now, through her return, is able to really help and be a light to others. So that is this pattern. So what I asked you guys to do last week was to look at your own story, and I wanted you to focus on the first chapter of your own story, your own hero's journey, Diana's story. So Diana's story, I asked all of you to think about up until you were 13. So I started with, we moved to the country, and then I told you I got this big horse named Charlie, and talked about how that time in my life very much defined and is part of the fabric of who I am today. But we need to kind of tell that story sometime to identify those pieces and own those pieces and really moving forward to who we are. So I asked all of you to pretend this, I wish I had time for this to be a reality, but that I asked you to have coffee with me individually, and I said, Melanie, tell me your story. And then you begin somewhere. You're like, I want to know your story when you were little Melanie. Tell me what happened. And your brain is automatically just naturally going to go somewhere, your beginning point. And trust me, it's not going to be, I was born in Michigan City in 1964 on a cold winter day. You're gonna start with something that's compelling to you, that you want me to know about you. right? And then from there, it's going to unfold into this beautiful story of Melanie, the little girl Melanie. And there are probably going to be times where I'm going to go, oh yeah, I see that. So that was last week. And then this week, I would like you guys to take this a little bit further and some more fun homework that's going to go with this. So I asked you to write that story, that we have coffee together, and to write the story of little person you. And whatever comes up for you, you don't even know right now. You might think you know what you're going to tell me, but when you start telling me the story, some things come up that you were like, God, I totally forgot that. And then when you think, gosh, that really is like part of who I am, you know? So it's a really powerful process. I want to call it a process that I really want everyone to do their homework in that. So then after you do that, what I would like you to do, this is your homework for this week, is to go through your photos, go through your old pictures. If you're like me, they're all mixed together. Although now they're on our phone. So old pictures usually aren't on our phone, but you're going to go through. I have this big black cabinet my father made for me years ago, and I throw all my pictures in there, and they're random, and I just like dig my hand in there and just pull out a wad of like little pictures when my brother and I were little, or the house we lived in, the first house I remember living in, and then it's mixed with like my favorite car, the black Carmagia with the Free Tibet sticker on the back, you know, and but everything like was a memory from like, oh, I love the Carmagia, where is it now? You know, or I think of all my college girlfriends, I wonder what she's doing right now. But it's this really beautiful process of going through memories, and it's just, and you start even in your own mind as you're going through these pictures telling your story. You're just reliving your story a little bit, like, oh yeah, this, oh yeah, that. And so I want you just to either get a cup of tea or coffee and get a big wad of pictures out and go through them, or at night have yourself a nice little, you know, evening time where you just pull out all these pictures. Really, again, enjoy this as a process that you're going to go through of looking through pictures. And what I would like you to do is find one picture. This is a hard part because you're going to want to do a bunch of them. But for right now, find one picture that identifies that first chapter. That first chapter. Like, it doesn't have to be when you're your baby picture. Sometimes they're not the prettiest ones. But more like for me, the picture I chose was the picture of little Diana on Big Charlie, the horse. You know, so that's the picture that I chose for that chapter. But I want all of you to pick that picture. And then, this is the last part of your homework, which is, again, it's really important to me, homework, is I want you to choose someone to tell your story to. And don't be surprised, you might be like, well, you know, my partner knows my story. Not really. I had a couple that was here that had so much fun with this because they didn't really know that pre-junior high part of each other's life, and they started telling each other things. They've been married for a long time that they hadn't really heard before. So it could be, you know, invite your spouse to have a date with you and go, we're going to tell our stories on this date tonight. Or it could be one of your kids. Some of my favorite times with my nieces, my brother would tell them about when we lived on the farm. We called it the farm. We had a cow, some chickens, 2 horses, but it was our farm. But he would tell them stories about how we built the barns and stuff, and then when he would come see the Grandma and Grandpa and Aunt Diana, he would say, oh, do you guys have any pictures of the barn? And so we'd get out pictures and show them to the girls, and then we would tell them stories about, you know, their father was little Jeff. And so I want you guys to really tell someone your story. It could be the kids, you know. It's fun to do that, or to show them, like pull out some pictures when you're telling the story of who you are and how you got to be. It kind of, we're not all the way here yet, but it's part of you defining, I am here. Where are you in your life right now? Who are you in your life right now? This is going to help define that. And then lastly, as most of you know, I won't be here. I'll be in Montana. I'll be in Montana this week teaching, but Kim is prepared to do the teachings for next week, which I gave you last week a little bit of, which I wanted you to identify your hero stories that are inspirational to you. So it could be, you know, I'd used our family story was like that Rocky film, like it was really inspiring to our family when we were younger. And then later in life, for me, it was Isaac Denison's writing of Out of Africa. And that became like she was my heroine, that she was an amazing writer, number one, she was my heroine, but that she was moved to Africa, and she was this tough lady that like made her way, and so she became and still is one of my heroes. So that would be what I would tell you if I was saying, these are my heroes, these are my stories that inspired me. I want you to write those down. And Kim, who's here, next week is going to really unfold this for you about your Eshwa Devata, which is your deity of choice, the deity that inspires you, that is like your person. And then also to look closer at those stories and how we really use those stories in our life. So be writing those down already for Kim. Your quote for this week is by a Franciscan priest named Richard Rohr. And it's from a beautiful book called Falling Upward. So get ready for a great adventure, the one you were really born for. Get ready for some new freedom, some dangerous permission, some hope from nowhere, some unexpected happiness, some stumbling stones, some radical grace, and some new and pressing responsibility for yourself and for our suffering world. Again, your homework. Sit with a cup of coffee or tea and look through your old photos. Sink into the feeling of remembering. We are having coffee, and I ask you to tell me your story. Allow the images to unfold, the telling of your beginning of your hero's journey into your I am here. Choose a photo that speaks to you and represents the first part of your journey. Make a copy and glue it in your journal. Namaste.